Empire. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a few stories up after the Commanders' season opening loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I have more throughout the week. So go over there, pay attention to that, and there you go. So anyways, today, I'm going to get into a review of Jayden Daniels' game, and not like this deep in the woods, or deep in the weeds, X and O stuff for him, but just some of the good and some of the areas where I feel like his experience is going to help him, because there are a couple of throws where you will say, like, okay, you will make this throw as you get more comfortable in the NFL game. And you have to remember, the guy's a rookie. He did a nice job, but there were throws. Like, if you want to see, like, Jayden Daniels did a nice job in his debut. Where can he get better? Well, here are some areas. And again, these are things that, like, as much as this guy studies film, he's going to say too. And I know the coaches are saying, they told him this too. And Dan Quinn basically told us today that there are a few throws like that, as you would expect. It's his first start. But that's why I want to go over this. There's going to be a lot of good, and then some areas where, again, the experience will make a difference for him, because I do think what some of the throws that he missed or didn't make, I think it really stems from experience. And I think that's where, if you want to see where can you make the jump, it's going to be here. And I'll be curious to see how it goes from week 1 to week 2. Now you got that full game. Keep in mind, man, this is first, like, he played a couple quarters in the preseason, and you had the joint practices where he looked pretty good. It's still not a full game. It's still not a full game speed. It's still not with the team preparing to defend you and you alone, because they were, it's funny because I talked to my NFL Nation reporters, and I had Jenna Lane on last week, but they'll tell you, like, how their coaches and their fear of what Jayden Daniels can do against them. So now they're preparing to stop him. So you're going to throw some looks, maybe get some looks where maybe it's a little bit, you just need to trust that this is a good NFL window, and you're going to be okay if you make this throw. So he does a really good job of taking care of the ball when he throws it. But there's sometimes where it's like, you're going to want to get to that point, and he will get to that point where this is the throw that you just need to make right now. And sometimes the window is much better than maybe you think, but you have to get used to doing it against NFL speed over and over and over again, and he'll get there. So anyways, want to get to that in a minute, but I'm going to start with the little bit of the news today on Monday. Washington released kicker Cade York. Shouldn't be a big surprise given what he did yesterday. 1 for 3, 56-yarder, 47-yarder miss. They need those points. And this is the guy who's been inconsistent throughout his career since he was drafted in the 4th round by Cleveland in 2022. What this also means, no conditional pick going to Cleveland from Washington. He had to be on the roster for 2 games. He is out after 1. They're going to sign Austin Seibert. That should be announced on Tuesday. Seibert's got at least some experience. It's another guy trotting through here. And so you have to hope at some point they get this kicker carousel right, because this is not a team that can afford to lose points. And they need to have a guy that you can trust. And so anyway, that's where they're at now. But they did make the move and expect Seibert to be signed on Tuesday. So, and before I get into, the other thing is, don't forget, Bram Weinstein and I, the voice of the Commanders, will be doing our live stream show Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time. Join us for that, because we'll go over, I've done a lot of the offense, and I'm just going over the defense. I'm kind of about halfway through the game. So by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, I will have finished all that and have watched more. And just to kind of go over more of some impressions, areas of concern, we'll talk about the defense, because that's a definite area of concern. And, we'll get into the little bit of the Giants, but just some other things that you think, and that maybe some early, some thoughts going in the game, some thoughts where they're at now. What should you be worried about? It's the first game of a new regime, folks. Take a deep breath. I know you guys have been waiting for 20 some years. They just got here. They're not going to solve it overnight. But what you want to see is steady progress. How do they respond to a tough opening or an ugly opening day loss, coming home against a team that you need to beat? and then watching how Jayden Daniels progresses. To me, that's why the season is so intriguing. I really enjoy watching how young quarterbacks progress and the steps that they take along the way. That's why I'm fascinated by Jayden Daniels, because I think you're going to see just steady, good improvement. And so, yes, there's some other things to do around him. I know there were definitely some guys that were getting open. So I watching the game, I'm like, are these guys getting open? Well, you rewatch it. Yeah, there are definitely times where they are. There's enough times that they could have made a serious dent with some of these completions. So, do they have a dynamic receiving core? No, they do not. But we knew that going in. But can they get open? Were they getting open, whether it's from their own moves or from the design of the play? There were some designs that I kind of like. So yes, there were. So I think all that adds up to, take a deep breath and let's see how it progresses. Anyway, so one thing with the defense, and again, I'm not getting into the defense tonight. Today. It's about Jayden Daniels, because again, story of this but I'm not going to ignore the defense. It's just that he's the first one I look at. It takes a long time to get through this stuff, so that's why I start with him. And my eyes are getting a little bit blurry. But I'll get to the defense throughout the week and with Bram as well. And, one of the guys, it's funny though, because a little bit of initial stuff. First of all, Jamin Davis did a nice job. And it's nice to see the way he's progressing as a defensive end against the run in particular. Also, Benjamin St-Juste, the one thing that I think if you're Washington that you feel better about is that he was in position to make some plays. On the touchdown to Mike Evans, and first of all, that's a really good receiver, but that's what you pay to cover. But he's right there. The problem for St-Juste is finishing the play. And you see, reading the eyes, reading the hands. And he didn't, you see the eyes, you see the hands for Evans starting to extend. You've got to get your hand up in there, affect the ball, right? Get your hand up through his hands or turn however you're going to play it. You're either playing through the ball like them, or you're turning to, find it, one or the other. But he didn't do either. He was in really good position to make a really good play. He just didn't finish. So a lot of weeks that will be a good effort against a lot of receivers. However, in the NFC East, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got, we'll see what Malik Neighbors offers. You got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. So those are challenges that you're going to face a lot this year. So you've got to be better there. Can he be better? Mike Samerstill had a couple of rookie mistakes, whether it's some angles, whether it's playing leverages. Like you saw some of that too. Like that's an area where he can get better, because that's a leverage thing. Forbes had issues with some leverage situations, and I'll get into that throughout the week, because I think that's important. But I don't want you to think I ignored the defense, because we know what we saw, and it has to be a lot better. The pressure was actually not bad. They just, again, the theme of the game for the defense was it didn't finish. They gave up some big bad plays, right? But up front, they didn't finish. So anyways, I'll get to all of that as we get going, but I do want to start with Daniel. So let's get there. And I think the key, there's a lot of good with Daniels, right? And we all saw that. But that's why I want to focus on him. And there's a lot to like. He plays with poise. He's an intense competitor. And, I know that this loss bothered him. It's the first loss of an NFL game. Guys who come from those big programs, with the Alabama guys, the Ohio State guys, when they come here and you start losing, it is tough on them. And when you're an intense competitor like this, it is really tough. Because I know like that was one of the takeaways for him, was just how much he hates losing, right? And it's what you hear from not him, but people around, like just how he reacts to that. So he's an intense competitor. That's all good. You should be, right? You should be. But when you're that kind of way and you want to look for ways to get better, this is what you do. And so I think there's some good coaching points for him. That's the beauty of this game. It's not like he had this great game and it's like he only threw for 184 yards. It's like he had an uneven game throwing the ball, good game running the ball, but there's more he can do. And I think that's where you should be encouraged, that this is not a guy who's like, oh, that's about as good as he can do. No, it's not. There's more there. And that's where I think, I think a lot of it comes back to experience, just getting comfortable. Again, did not play more than a couple quarters in the preseason. That's not a lot. So And there, I think that's a good thing for him. But one of the things that Dan Quinn said today when we were talking to him, he said, talking about some of the runs and if his assessment of Daniels after watching the film was what he thought. And he did say, I think if he'd asked, he said Jayden probably would want to let it rip on some of those guys on some opportunities. So there were missed opportunities. Those are the hard ones. And like I asked him about things that Daniels can show through experience. He said, when you're going through most of the time going through the progressions and probably with experience, I would say like taking sacks on some of the second down ones. I'll get to one of those. Those are things that set you back. You want to give yourself a chance. And, so the first thing he said that came to mind for him when I asked him about that is taking the sacks, right? Especially one that, again, I'll get to down the road or in a few minutes. But anyway, so those are some of the things that Quinn said. But again, I think the other thing too is one of the things that I'm curious to see how he develops here is when he starts to run, is he keeping the ball alive? So when Robert was here, one of the things that would kind of the coaches harped on, if you remember going the second year, they harped on this a lot in practice, but keeping the ball alive, especially when he had a penchant for Robert did when he was 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he wanted to run, eyes go down, ball's here, you're starting to run. He missed plays because it missed potential big plays down the field because of it. Now, I thought like when Jayden ran, I don't know that I felt like he was doing that quite as much. There may have been one or two couple times where he could have done a better job with them. But I also felt like, if it's man coverage and you got 20 yards right now, if you're going to run your 5 yards, just go. And I think that's kind of what the mindset was rather than, if it's zone, maybe you're going to keep the ball alive because you can see you got more guys in front with eyes on you. But when it's man like that, then you're going to go. And so I think that's what he did. So I don't know that that's necessarily an issue for him just yet because, in college when he ran, right? But it's not like a first read and go. It's a boom, 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 escape, go. And so by that point, you kind of know maybe what you have available on the ground. It's funny because one of the things that the virtual reality stuff taught him, it's not just that what to look for in the throw, but knowing what coverage they're in and where guys are supposed to drop, and then knowing what you can do if you have to run, where you need to get out and how you can maybe what might be available for you. And I think that plays a factor in that as well. So, but I do wonder, like, is that something to watch at all? Because I know with Robert, it absolutely was that first year. And the second year going into a second year that they worked on that a lot. But I think the difference is that going through the progressions first puts you in that mindset, like, what you got, you got man, go.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and is going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts, and many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
The other thing that I really like watching is how Tampa stresses an offensive front. And you saw this time and again, and just the way they create some overloads, some of the stunts they have, they'll have one guy coming inside a stunt, or one guy slanting outside a stunt, taking two guys and looping two guys inside around them and creating a tough spot for a guy to handle. You saw this, like, you can ask Brandon Coleman. We saw this on one play. If you remember, which play was it? It was a 2nd down and 8. And Daniels ends up with a 17-yard run. In fact, I'm going to put that play up right now. So on the screen, so you can see it. I can only do the screenshot. I cannot do the video. If you see people using video, it's not allowed. I work for ESPN. I'm not going to get in trouble just to put up the video. We're not allowed to do it. You're only allowed so many seconds from a game. And because I work for ESPN, it would count against ESPN's total. So anyways, that's why I put up the screenshot. So it still gives you an idea. But in this one, you can see like Antoine and Winfield fakes the blitz, right? And it draws Coleman, and they send the linebacker in behind there in that gap, the line sliding the other way. And Coleman is could not get back inside. In the past, that's a sack. It was not a sack this time. It's a 17-yard run. So that's one of the things that he can do. Gets you out of that danger. Only sacked twice, despite all the blitzes, despite the pressure. Only sacked twice. So that's what those legs get you. Another time, there's quick check down to Austin Eckler. It's one where Eckler gets 22 yards. Now, Eckler does a nice job because he turns, runs, and breaks tackles. It's a lot on him, but he had some cushion because Daniels gets him the ball quicker, right? So I think that's a good thing too. One of the plays I wonder about, and I think this is one I'd like to ask somebody like, so I'm just going to go over the play, and it's a slot fade to McLaurin that he threw down the left side. McLaurin kind of gets nudged against the sidelines there, so there's not a lot of room for him. But the other thing I wonder is what could have been done differently, because there's two other options. One, Eckler's breaking open over the middle. That's an easy 20-yard game, or probably about a 20-yard game. Or can you throw the back shoulder to McLaurin that one, because the defensive back, if it's even, I think they're going to throw the fade. If it's not even and the D-back's just a titch ahead, then you maybe throw that back shoulder. But Eckler was available there. So it's not a criticism. It's just a wondering that what could you have done differently there? Because were there two other options available for you? How would you play that differently? That's the stuff that I love, because that's where you see, what is he learning? How is he going to improve? What might he do? Some people can hear that stuff and some people can say it and they don't do anything different the next time. I think with Jayden Daniels, I think you're going to see him do different things based on him now having the games filmed. That's what's, I think, is a good thing for him. So now, having said that, the other one is still a touchdown drive. That's a drive where he ran, gets hit in the head, and they end up finishing it. So it didn't cost him, but it is something like, what did you learn on that particular play, if anything? So, and my guess is he did. And then you have the other one to McLaurin. So there were times where McLaurin was definitely available. And the first play of the second half, a little bit more air under, just missed by about a yard or two, but maybe a little bit more air to, and McLaurin he knew, like, they had been running some routes where they're doing some things, and the defensive backs were kind of flat footing the reads there. Well, this time he's not cutting out, no double move. It's just go, and he ran by him. That's why he was so wide open. Throw just missed. So that happens. And the funny thing is, like in college, he missed those throws too. The difference is you get another one on the next play or the next series, and you're going to hit it. And here it's harder to get those, especially when you don't have the plethora of talent that he had at LSU compared to what he was facing. So, and he would make them really good throws. So you figure, like, he gets that again, he's going to probably hit it. So because that's one of his strengths. There were a couple of times too with Daniels where the things that you wonder was he maybe getting off a target just a little bit early, or maybe was he seeing something that maybe wasn't quite, that maybe is enough to say, like, I'm not sure, so I'm going to go here. And he, and so I think, right, there was a little, I don't know if it's being a little bit cautious with it, but, clearly, like, take care of the ball. And he did that. So, while there's some big plays, I think, again, those will present himself in other games. So let's see how he does it with that. And then there was another play that I wonder about too. And just from his perspective, there was a play where McLaurin runs down the seam. They had him inside to the left of the tackle, on the left of the left tackle, runs down the seam. You have there's a deep half safety on that side. Now, the thing I wonder about is, does he have a shot to McLaurin on this one? I think he probably did. The safety kind of turns and angles toward McLaurin. That could have been enough to say, like, okay, not going there. And so, but that's one where I'd like to ask him, like, did you feel you did? If not, why? If so, why? Right. And because, again, I'm not playing the position, I'm not seeing his vantage point. But if you see that safety, what's the rule? Is if you see the safety turn, because can he break over there, or can you throw it out away from there and maybe lead McLaurin away from that deep half safety he was between the hash and he was deep. He was outside. So I don't even know, he's more covering that half of the field. But anyway, so just curious on that one. But he still gained 11 yards. He ran the ball, still gained 11 yards. So he still, you get the pattern here that there's some throws that maybe you don't get, but you're gaining 11 yards. Not bad, right? So I think you're going to take some, at least like, hey, this is the beauty of a guy who can run and that you still can make plays. I remember when Kyler Murray was coming out, I remember Jay Gruden talking to him, like that was the guy I think that he would have loved, because when you have a guy that can make plays with their legs, it can help with the development. You can make plays while he's still learning to play the position at the NFL level. The one sack, the sack fumble, this is not something that Daniels, I don't think, could have hit, but Luke McCaffrey was open on the play. I just don't think there was any way he was going to get it there, because there was just too much pressure. It's just that for people who wonder, were they getting open? Well, in this play, he was. Now, again, he's getting sacked and fumbled, but if the protection holds up, or if they pick it up, now you got a shot for something. There was also a sack on the 2nd 8 from the 36-yard line. From the Tampa 36. This is where the first sack was. And so this is one where that Dan Quinn talked about. It basically backed him up to the 45 because he lost 9 yards. And it looks like he's looking to the right. Looks like he's looking for Zacchaeus. And this is one where I think I wonder for here is, do you stay with him too long? Because now if you work back to the other side, you got Ertz on a cross and then McCaffrey behind him on a cross. So you got two guys, and both of them had shots at him. McCaffrey could have gained him a nice chunk if you get off there. And so then he ends up getting sacked because you stick around there, you stay on him too long. That's one where, again, how do you handle that down the road? So, and it's really, all this is about ways that he can improve, because that's what you want to see. And, how can they help him? Can this offense be good with him, with what they have there? I think it can be. This is just part of the building process. I mean, the line was together for the first time, and you saw Coleman was playing. I think he played like 12, 14 snaps, and it's his first time. So you're going to see things for the first time that are going to get you, and it's going to test your rules and your knowledge of the rules of the line, of the protection or whatever. And then how do you handle it? By the way, people worried about left tackle. Like Cornelius Lucas was not a problem in pass protection at all. So, and I know Andrew Wiley had some tough moments for sure. And Diaby, the defensive end for Tampa Bay, is pretty good and had a really good game. And he even had, I think he actually knocked Cosme back one time on a rush and just drove him back and on a pressure. So, he did well against a lot of others, but where Wiley had some trouble is you get upfield and they're coming back inside. That's a weakness for him, and it has been. So that's where he had some trouble. There were a couple of times where I think there were some stunts in line. This is where the cohesion of line could have been maybe a little bit better to handle that. So, the more they play together, and I know Cosme and Wiley play together, but now you're in you got different situations going on. But anyways, just want to point that out. The other thing you could see, there's sometimes we say like, okay, one thing they still need is a wide receiver with size. And there was one throw where he had to make it to Zacchaeus, and this is not Zacchaeus' fault. He's the guy being asked to run the play, but it's one where you have a little bit more size. Now, you don't have to be 6'4", 6'5", but just maybe a bigger guy, a 6 foot 1 inch guy with some, can extend a little bit, maybe just has a little bit more power than, that you can, maybe the play doesn't get broken up because of that. So that's something that they certainly could use. And it's not, it's a strength thing. It's a physical. Zacchaeus has some strength. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the tallest guy. So maybe a little bit more of that they could use. The other thing is on that play of Zacchaeus, what I liked is on the other side, nice play design that got McCaffrey open. Again, this is a play design, and I'm not even saying that he should have gone over there. But it's just that when you're looking at it, like how is the play design coming along? Is something you can file away? They ran out of a bunch formation, and they fooled the Bucs with how they ran their routes, and that's why McCaffrey got open. So, I think they were anticipating McLaurin coming inside, but he did a little whip route that kind of threw him off, and McCaffrey breaks out to the outside. He's open, file it away. That's what you would do if a coach, because there was nothing wrong with the decision to go over there. It's just that that's where the size could have helped. And again, going back to the sack, that's an experience thing too. So um, I thought, the other thing I liked, and I think this is why this last drive was so important, because I think he was able to finish strong, and people can call it garbage time. The Bucs were still blitzing, and clearly they don't want to give up points. And I know, like, that last touchdown, well, it didn't impact the game, right? But it is something that they can build on for him. What he needs is reps. Like, that's invaluable experience at that time of the game. You can use that one as like, and I know Sam Cosmi had talked to you about this after the game, but they said, like, hey, we have a chance to go do something here. And again, it's about that particular drive. And I agree, like, that's a good time, like, build on something and get those reps in against a blitz and reading it and all that. And the Bucs were still, they sent some simulated pressure. They sent a couple 5-man rushes. So it was a good chance to work on something. It wasn't just against a prevent defense or letting you dink and dunk. That wasn't the case. So while the score wasn't close, it still is, to me, a valuable drive for a young quarterback, young offense, period. Because, like, when you look at this game, it's like the last thing you come away from this game thing is like, oh my gosh, they don't have you're still not sure about the quarterback. I think Jayden Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. And I would say this, everybody you talk to out there will say the same thing. Like, he's done nothing since he has arrived to suggest that he's not going to be anything but a good quarterback in the NFL. The question for me is how good, right? But a good quarterback, because that's the approach he takes. When you watch him on the field, you don't see a guy who's ever looked overwhelmed. And I didn't think he looked that at all on Sunday. I just think he looked like a guy who has to get more NFL experience to build on his game and build on whatever successes he has. But I liked how he finished that drive. There was a simulated pressure that he gets the ball out to Zacchaeus for 15 yards. He has another blitz that he gets it out for a 7-yard gain. I can't remember who it was to. There was another one. I think he ran one for 8 yards. He has a hitch to McCaffrey. Oh, the double slant to McCaffrey, like that. Just a nice stick your foot in the ground and get it out there. And McCaffrey almost scores. There was another time too where one play that I liked as well, which is the poise and just analogy. There's a 7-man blitz against a 6-man protection, and he calmly just flips it over to Robinson, gets some yards, and gets going. In fact, on that play, what I liked is how Austin Eckler blocked, and he threw a nice block down the field. They were on the same side after the catch, and he just throws a nice block and helps spring Robinson on that one. So I think that was, anyways. So, and I actually like some of the things, other things I like too, when you're looking at who can help Daniels around him. And again, they don't have the most dynamic receiving core. There were a couple of times where I felt like De'Ami Brown was open on a dig, for example, where it's like, okay, I think that's one where you see it and you see the linebacker start to drop, but there's a gap. And I think that's one that he's going to say, okay, next time I got this, I can squeeze that in there because it's there. And it was a play action 2-man route, and they still gain yards on the play, but you had the chance for a bigger 20-yard gain down the field. He'll get there. And I think that's where, that's one where, again, the experience will help guide him to the throws he needs to make. Because the one thing about Jayden Daniels is that in college, he was a passer who could run. And the running here is going to help the offense move, help him as he gets more and more comfortable with what he needs to do as a passer. And so I think that's a good thing for this organization and for him. I think Eckler and Ertz can still help. I think you saw that on Sunday. And again, while Ertz only had a few catches, he certainly was available for more. Now, whether or not he was always in the play or not, or in the progression, I mean, that's another thing. I can't answer that. But what I know is there were chances that, if you wanted to get to him, you had some more chances to get to him because he was there. So I think those are all good things. And it's like I said, with Daniels, like, I thought it was a good first game. I think it was, you saw the competitor in him. This is what you kind of saw at Arizona State too when he first got there, is just the competitor. And he would gain yards, he would do this, he would do that, but it was the competitor that you saw. And I think you see that with this here. And I know like some people may roll their eyes at that. I don't know, but I don't, because I think that's one of the number one things I'd want in a quarterback. Give me a guy who's an intense competitor, and then let's go from there. And I think that's what they have here. So anyways, that's all I got for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, I'll be back on Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, 7:30 Eastern time, live stream. Join us there. Bring some questions, bring some concerns, bring your angst. You shouldn't listen, folks. It's one game with a new regime. Deep breath. I know you're bringing decades of angst into this, but they just got here. So, Rome, you weren't going to solve it overnight. I know there's some areas where you say, like, could you have done different things before this to prepare for these issues? Yes. But anyway, we'll go from there. Just deep breath and join us Tuesday night. And I guess it's a therapy Tuesday, but I don't even like that anymore because it's, let's move on from that. But anyway, join us Tuesday night. Bring your questions, bring your concerns, bring your comments, and let's have a good time. Talk to you next time.